Now let's move on to my tidbit of the week. Tidbit of the week is called, I got to take a deep breath for this one, guys. It's not easy, but it's worth it. That's my tidbit of the week. Okay. So, as I've been diving into learning more about myself and more about shooting, I'm realizing how little I really know. And I know a little about a lot of things, but don't have super high mastery in everything, but constantly a work in progress. And honestly, it's a great and humble place to be, to recognize that you don't know everything. There's still a lot to learn. And being willing to admit and that you don't know it all, but trusting that you keep learning. As trainers and students in the gun community, we run across a lot of different kinds of people, right? Some are perpetual learners, but some have like little to no drive at all, and others just think they know it all, right? And I've learned, and as I state in the intro of every show, that everything in gun training relates to life, and everything in life relates to gun training. Now, what do I really mean by that? If you're the type of person who holds back and is unsure of your world in general, I can usually see those same tendencies in your shooting, usually in the form of not being able to make decisions well, not trusting yourself, and being hesitant in your shooting. On the other hand, if you're an adventurous, spontaneous, impatient type of person, that usually reflects in your shooting as well, in the form of not taking enough time to confirm your shots or rushing to an endpoint rather than staying in the present. And while I didn't quite understand before, then I'm starting to learn now that you truly can change. You don't have to be stuck as the same kind of shooter or the same kind of person that you were last year or last month. You can change your mental game and improve yourself by first being aware and honest about where you are currently, and second, by choosing a different path if needed each and every day, one tiny decision at a time, little by little. And if it were only that easy, right? That sounds really easy to do. Well, it's not. It's really hard, but it's worth it. And more on that in just a little bit. I cannot count the number of people I have heard on the range say things like, I'm just not good with pistols. They're not my thing. Or I can shoot this gun well, but I can't shoot that gun well. Or they say, I just can't shoot this drill in under fill in the blank seconds. And so they just decide in their mind that that's the type of shooter and performer that they are. And guess what? That's where they stay. I see people take shots on the line and shake their head in disappointment, muttering things under their breath. How many times have you done that yourself or seen someone else do that? And what they don't realize is that each time they do that, they are reinforcing the negative. And they're actually, in a sense, teeing up the very performance that they don't want in the future. And what do you think their next shot is like? Probably as bad or worse than the last one, right? So, what if you could truly have a growth mindset in your life that would lead you to better shooting and better relationships with other people and with yourself? This is my encouragement for you tonight. First, I want to challenge you. Be willing to ask yourself the question, what if? From my experience, the question, what if, allows you to explore ideas from the perspective of curiosity rather than limiting beliefs, which is key. What if you could learn to perform with pressure rather than letting your nerves override your performance? What if you could trust yourself to shoot in a way that you can be confident in? What if you could enjoy yourself as a shooter rather than turning every range session into an internal bashing session? Guys, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know some of you out there that do this. You do it internally and you do it externally later after you get off the range. What if learning to manage those things actually translated into a better you in your everyday life, not just on the range? And I'm telling you it will. What you do in everyday life, how you think about yourself, your mental game, and your decision making process all reflect heavily in the type of performer you become, whether it be in shooting or any other skill that you are looking to perform. And one of my favorite quotes is from Brian Hill, the Complete Combatant, and he says, "You don't have to be special to be great." And it's true. You don't have to have special DNA to be a great shooter. You don't. And also, you don't have to live in constant anxiety, worried about what everyone else thinks of you. And you don't have to be a perfectionist in everything you do because the world will not fall apart if you don't get it right. It won't. In fact, what will happen is you will grow from your missteps. Try and fail constantly. Yes, I said it. Fail constantly, but always get back up, learn, and try again. This cannot be overstated. Guys, I do this all the time. I feel like I'm failing every day, and I get back up and I keep going. And that is how you grow. Lastly, as another one of my favorite gun trainers says, can you guess who that might be? Adam Winch, Defenders USA. Adam says, focus on the process and the outcome will take care of itself. Now, you tell me how that quote does not apply to everyday life. Focus on the process and the outcome will take care of yourself. Raise your hand if you've been in an Adam Winch class and you've heard him say that. Now, what does that mean? The more you focus on the external, the less you will be able to reach your full potential because your focus will be out there and not right here, right now. So stay in the moment, focus on one thing at a time, be intentional and thoughtful in your process, but take it one small step at a time. Don't eat the whole elephant in one bite, right? So how do you know when you're not focusing on the process? It's when you're focusing on external factors such as money, winning the patch, winning the award, gaining notoriety, or even something as small as constantly looking over your gun to see where the shot went. Are any of you guilty of that? Please don't do that. That's not a good habit to get into. Instead, focus on things like learning to trust yourself more in the moment and releasing your body to perform the skills you already know are there and you already know how to do. Or something like simply feeling the grip and trigger press with absolute full awareness every time. That's staying in the process. So if you get nothing else from this tidbit tonight, please remember this and take it to heart. Try to separate yourself from the shots you just took and the shots you're getting ready to take, and just take the shot in front of you right now. That's how you win. That's how you make progress. That's how you grow. All you have is this moment right now, today. And if you do that, before you know it, you'll look back in awe of how far you've come in your shooting and in your everyday life. And this is just a sliver of what I've learned over the last year, and it has changed a lot of things for me, and I hope it can help you too. It requires honesty and accountability. It requires curiosity and willingness to work. And as with everything in life worth pursuing, it's not easy, but I promise you, it's worth it. Okay, off my soapbox. So there's my tidbit of the week. Has anybody else commented on their win of the week? Nope, don't see anybody, but I see some more shout outs. So Melissa's with us. Hey, Melissa, glad you're with us tonight. And Karen is shouting out as well. And oh my Lord, look who just showed up. Should I bring him on the screen? Oh, Adam's in the house. He made it. I can't believe it. That's wonderful. Well, thanks for your help, Adam. I'm probably going to need it tonight. It's always way more fun when I have some help. All right, so let's move on to Memphis Beech. And Memphis's real name is Mikos, by the way. So Mikos, aka Memphis Beech, is a Marine Corps veteran, a sponsored competitive shooter, an IDPA master in multiple divisions, and a turbo pen winner. He primarily teaches out of Top Gun Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee. He's also known for his YouTube channel of nearly 7,000 subscribers and the EDC Everyday Conversations podcast. He also runs the Concealed Carriers Book Club on Facebook. So make sure to join that. So let's welcome Memphis onto the show. Hey, Memphis.
Hey, Laura, how's it going tonight?
Oh, really good. I really enjoyed sharing my win of the week and the tidbit of the week. So I hope that resonated with people.
I'm sure it did. Yeah.
So let's talk about you tonight. Okay, so here's where I'm thinking about going with this. I want to start a little bit with the podcasting and then go into your experience in competitive shooting and ask you a few questions as an instructor if you're cool with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is going to be fun.
I know. So, probably not everybody knows, I was on your podcast. Well, Adam and I were on your podcast. I can't remember. It's been a few months back, probably. So go to Memphis's channel and check that interview out. That was a fun interview. And in fact, I think that was my first podcast interview was with you. I think it was.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
How
it
was it?
was. It
How
was
did you like
it
it?
was different not interviewing people and being in the spotlight. That probably wasn't my most favorite thing in the world. But I did my best. So tell us, how did you get started in podcasting? Like, why did you start your podcast, first of all? And how long ago was that?
So, hmm, let's see. So, I I've been hearing it for years. Like, dude, you have a great voice. Uh, you should do radio. I definitely have the face for radio, right? Um, I like a lot of folks have just said, hey, if you've and then also here's the thing, like podcasts like yours and there's some other podcasts out there as well, such as, the American Warrior Show with Rich Brown. You know, there's Riley Bowman's Concealed Carriers podcast. There's
Mhm.
Lee Weems, that Weems show. Those podcasts really inspired me, and I I really it really kind of hit home with me when I was really kind of excited about, some class sometime, right? Like, hey, Tom Givens is coming to town. All right, great. I'll tell my friends about it. Who's Tom Givens? And well, they just don't know because they're not part of the world, they're not part
Sure.
of, so uh after enough times of talking about these people, I was like, well, me and my friends, we were, after a class, sitting back and, having beers and, talking about like, hey, I really want a podcast that, does this or that. I forget exactly what we were thinking about, but once again, they told me, hey, look, you should start a podcast. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, if enough people tell me you should probably do something, I might want to look
Yeah.
into it. And
Yeah.
so when, uh, when my son was born, my company, the company I work for, I really don't have permission to talk about them on the air like this, but I was fortunate enough to receive 8 weeks of parental leave, and
Wow.
yeah, it was really cool. So not only was I able to knock out some stuff on, the honey-do list, but it also got me an opportunity. Like, hey, you know what? Me and my wife, we talked about it, and she was like, "Well, if it's something you really want to do, then I'll support you." And so, I started making some phone calls and started getting some guests in, and the
Mhm.
thing just kind of spiraled out of control, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
Takes on a life of its own, doesn't it?
it absolutely does, and it grows, and
Yeah.
it's organic, and it's fun. It's
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah. Yep. This community is full of good people, really it is.
It really
And
is,
so
and
what
yeah,
have been what have been some of your so how long ago was that? And then what have been some of your biggest hurdles along the way?
I want to say it was maybe like 4 or 5 months ago.
Oh,
And I
really?
remember this.
Literally just 4 or 5 months.
Yeah,
Wow.
is come to think of it, it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but I what really was the catalyst was I I started looking back over my social media, my Facebook, my YouTube, and I just saw a lot of me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there were here's this class I went to, and here's this drill I ran, and here's the stage I shot, and here's this thing I won, and I tell you what, like if my son, like if one day he grows up and he looks back at this stuff, like what would he say about his dear old dad?
Mhm.
Like where it's like egotistical and you know uh self-centered. They kind of come to mind. And even though that wasn't the intent when I pressed the post button, that's really just what I felt in my heart. And I was like, well, look, how about we use this as an opportunity to highlight some of the guys in the industry that nobody knows about, you
Yeah.
know? So every time someone looks at me and says, hey, you know, hey, Brian Hill's coming to town. How about we get together and who's Brian Hill? Hey,
So
you
then you
know,
put him on the list, yeah.
so I get him on the list.
So this was a chance for you to bring awareness, to the public of a lot of people. You're in the world, in the gun world, so it makes, logical sense that that would be a good fit. Was there anything about, like, coming in to the public eye that was, like, challenging for you or different or something you didn't expect? Or has it all just been,
Mm,
like, pure love?
you know what? I thought I'd see more hate. I
Yeah.
thought that I thought that, there would be more, more criticism, like negative
Mhm.
criticism, more,
Mhm.
crap talk, because that's
Mhm.
definitely what you see on the YouTube channel. And,
Yeah.
you know, um, for instance, I made a video just talking about my perspective on concealed carry holsters. It did
Mhm.
pretty well, but, I have to really be careful about the comment section because, a lot of it was geared towards my own personal perspective.
Mhm.
I'm not a skinny guy. I'm a thick dude. I'm
Dude, though, you can move. I have seen videos of you shooting. You can move. I shoulda queued one up so everybody could see it.
I like that right there is just a good product of my training. Guys like I've had a lot of grandmaster shooters that were able to show me the way. And you know, if you're if you're having trouble with, I want to say just about any skill, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do trial and error.
Yeah.
Me personally, I just don't have time, because
Mhm.
I work like
You
50.
definitely don't have time now.
Definitely not. So, it's like, okay, well, if you want to meet that goal and you don't have a whole lot of time and you're driven, okay,
Yeah,
I need to find some folks that have gone before. Brian
yeah.
Hill says all the time that, the definition of sensei is one that has gone before. And so,
Mhm.
it just makes sense for me that, hey, if I want to learn jujitsu, how about I find, someone that has gone before? Or if I want to
Mhm.
learn IT, how about I find someone that's gone before? So
Mhm.
hopefully, if I go enough places, I can help others
Yeah.
were that are where I was. So
Mhm. That's how I feel too.
yeah,
Totally.
just kind
Yeah,
of feel
'cause
led that way.
yeah, I do too because, I think a lot of it is, like, almost creating something for your former self is what it feels like to me because I've had such a growth curve, throughout my career, and I feel like, man, I there are just things that I wish I knew then, you know? There was a lot of stuff that I had to relearn, and some of it I had to untrain, because I just didn't know what I didn't know, and it was sure would have been nice to have that information. And that's
Absolutely.
okay, that's part of learning. I'm curious to know, has there been, like, a moment on your podcast or a topic or a conversation or a person that has just really blown you away or what's been your, like, favorite, topic that
Oh
you've
my
talked
gosh.
about?
One of the things that I try to pull out of people is things that folks may not necessarily know them for, like,
Mhm.
and just about everybody has that kind of thing. Like I remember my first guest. My first guest was Howie Williams, and I brought him on because he was the chapter president for the Memphis chapter of the National African American Gun Association. It's a
Mhm.
nationwide organization. People call it the Black NRA, and we're about, I don't know, 70 or 80,000 members strong right now. Uh, I think this year they're just about to kick off their first national convention, so they're doing really good things right now.
Oh,
And
wow. Yeah.
we're really proud of our president. What I didn't know until maybe kind of just before I had him on was that he actually fights human trafficking. He he
Does he?
finds
Wow.
Yeah, he finds lost girls that are kidnapped and, brought into the sex trade, and he rescues those girls. So
Wow.
and his stories are absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So, bringing stuff like that, and it doesn't always have to be that heavy. Um, there's
Mhm.
another instructor. His name is Josh Benson, and he had been in a wheelchair since he's 3 months old. So,
Oh, wow.
and he's an instructor. He's one of our instructors up at Top Gun. He is a competitive
Mhm.
shooter, even though he only has like technically like an arm and a half, right? And
Wow.
still he not only is he happily married, not only is he a phenomenal instructor, he has an intelligence quotient of, it's incredibly high. The man knows how to manage emotions and how to make
Mhm.
people feel at ease. But
Mhm.
he also, like, he told me about the time where he got invited to Jerry Miculic's range, and
Oh, cool.
he basically had like a private class with him and other shooters that are confined to wheelchairs and have permanent physical disabilities, and they even shot a pistol match. Like, it was really cool.
Wow.
They like, one of their guys, they would have one guy that pushes their wheelchair, and while they shoot,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
so awesome. And a lot
Oh,
of these guys that they bring on, they have these quirks about them that just end up being incredibly fascinating. How Gabe
yeah.
White makes EDM music. You know
Yeah.
how you have Tim Reedy that rides bikes and wears kilts,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
not necessarily at the same time. I had to ask that question. But yeah, a lot
Yeah,
of these
that's what I love
stories.
about interviewing people. You learn so much about them, and, there's so many dimensions to people, more than meets the eye. So pulling that out is really, really fun to do. Let me see if I can do that with you, Memphis.
Okay.
Oh, shoot. Okay, but okay, so you did start something new recently. I wanted to give you, some time to talk about this, called the Coaches Collective. So
Mhm.
what is that?
So me and some friends, we got together, and it not isn't is it's not my brainchild. It's the brainchild of Christopher Bean. Christopher Bean
Oh.
is an extremely accomplished instructor. He
Yeah.
um, he is mostly known for his work with the active self protection instructor certification, along with John Correa, Stephanie
Mhm.
Widener, Neil Widener, and Carrie Dudenhofer. Also, he just got brought on to the Complete Combatants cohort. So
Mhm.
he's working hand in hand with Brian Hill and Shelley Hill. He's doing
Mhm.
phenomenal things, and
Yeah.
he is one of those coaches that he really kind of he's an emotional coach. He's a very cerebral coach, and
Mhm.
the thing that hurts about being on social media is that the great thing about social media is that you can reach people. The
Mhm.
bad thing about social media is they can reach you. but
Yeah.
um, but we saw that some of these folks, they go on Facebook and YouTube, and I remember that as well when I first got started, because I really just didn't know where else to go. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to hang out with other people that shot guns, and you know
Mhm.
it's easy to find those groups on Facebook, and it's easy for you to ask questions like, "Hey,
Mhm.
my groups keep going low and left. Why is that?"
Mhm.
And of course, you get the typical answers from folks that have never been instructors, you know, have never been trained on how to teach or how to coach or even how to shoot. And so
Mhm.
you get the typical answers like, "Hey, stop jerking the trigger,"
Mhm.
or maybe your sights are off. So just push your rear sight all the way to the right, and that'll work.
People
um,
really say that?
they say that all the time.
Wow.
And every once in a while, what'll happen is you'll have one guy that spits out a nugget of truth, right? And it'll say, "Hey, maybe
Mhm.
you just need to get in front of a really good coach, and another set of eyes is really what you probably need." The sad part is that gets buried underneath
Mhm.
all the garbage that's on there, because the guy that
Mhm.
says stop jerking the trigger, that comment gets like 30 likes, and that's the one that floats to the top.
Mhm.
And so we wanted to change the way that people think about improving their shooting. And we
Mhm.
wanted coaching to be a lot more accessible. And so, you know, with this idea, Christopher Bean got a hold of, me and Tyler Tharp and Dan Brady and Riley Bowman. And, recently we, just brought on, uh, Tim Herron. And it's the ideas that are floating around are pretty awesome.
I
We're
can
really looking,
imagine. I need to watch one of those because I can only imagine what that's like. Yeah, because
those
yeah, Chris
conversations are
is.
really fun.
Yeah, I imagine they are really really good stuff. So let's move into your competition shooting just a little bit, and so tell us about, so you, I think you said you got your master classification in 2018. So what was your what were some of the like struggles that you had as a lower level shooter, and what were some of the breakthroughs you had along the way getting to master class? And then after you answer that, I've got another follow-up question.
Sure thing. Yeah. So I first got into competitive shooting because training had dried up in my area. Um,
Mm,
so Tom Givens had moved away, and um, that was after. That was actually before I got into this whole training space. I missed training at the mothership by 3 months.
yeah, you
I
told me
got my
that
permit
before.
in June, and they had closed in April. So,
Oh.
they did. There was another range that was very local, and they offered classes, but it wasn't of the same caliber. And that range closed. The only range that we had left at the time was called Shoot Point Blank, and it was very corporate, and it wasn't really based on any kind of established um, or recognizable body of knowledge. Like either you
Mhm.
can have range master or you can have this. And, okay. So I was like, okay, well, I want to shoot gooder. And these guys, I don't know if they're going to teach me how to shoot gooder. So,
Mhm.
me and some friends of mine, I got up with another buddy of mine. His name is Christopher Narayanan. God rest him. Before he got called home, he we shot together. We shot together a bunch every Friday after work. We would go to the range, and
Mm.
we each would bring a drill and a box of ammo. And he really inspired me to get better at shooting. Well, what had happened was there I was on Lucky Gunner's website after having just watched one of the videos that Lucky Gunner is famous for with Chris Baker and John Johnston and Melody Lauer. And there I
Mhm.
was buying another case of ammo, and there in the lower hand corner there was a how there's the ads in the side of the screen. There was an article there that says why you aren't a better shooter, and
Hmm.
it had things in there, right? She made some really good points, like maybe your range is inadequate, maybe you don't have any instruction, maybe you don't know what skill looks like. And so right there was that chart that we've all seen from John Hearn, where he has the scale of automaticity, and there were a lot
Mhm.
of acronyms on there that I didn't know about, like USPSA or IDPA. I knew
Mhm.
what the FBI qual was. I knew what the
Mhm.
bill drill was, but I had no idea what those were. So I looked
Mhm.
online, and I found some matches that were near me, and the level of skill that I witnessed at those matches, it
Oh,
blew my mind. Like I'm talking, they were shooting faster than I thought was possible, and their groups were. I'm talking like they're shooting tight like this, and the reloads. That was the
like how
first time
you shoot
I
now?
saw. I try not to brag. The first time I ever saw somebody knock out a reload, where I'm talking, the reload happened. The new mag was in the gun and sights were on target before the old mag hit the ground. And I was like,
Yeah.
how can I gain this power? So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, um, there was a there was a Navy veteran named you know Cody Ray, and he took me under his wing. He was the match director of the club. He was he was one of the chief safety officers. He's a mentor and a friend, and he took me under his wing. And he was like, hey, he didn't really teach me more about shooting gooder. He really taught me about like just mental awareness and staying process focused. And so let's
Mm.
just go with that and just have fun with it. Just go out there and have fun. Pick one single goal for each stage. Just have fun with it. And you know, eventually what ended up happening was I just kind of made a mistake. I fell into shooting master. I bought a
Fell
P360.
into it?
It was totally
Really?
by accident. Yeah. So I bought a new gun. I bought a P365, and I was like, "Hey, this is a really cool, carry gun. I want to try it out." And you know, I I was like, "Well, before I want to carry it, I want to put it through its paces. I want to put it through a match." And so
Uh-huh.
I went to the match, and they had a classifier. And IDPA only has one class. Well, it has three technically, but if you score master at any one of these three classifiers, then you're a master. Whatever that is, that you're there. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so I took that P365 to the match, and I was just really kind of evaluating, like, hey, let's see how well I can place my grip. Let's see how well I can see the sights. Let's just feel the trigger to see where the reset is. And staying process focused like that, we looked down at the scores and we were up there like, hmm, dude, welcome to master. And so Chris was the match director and he was the chief safety officer. And he was like, "Hey man, so you really like that P365?" And I was like, "Well, I do now." And he was like, you know, I was like, we were talking about it and I was like, "Hey man, do you want to shoot it?" And he was like, "What do you mean? Like, yeah, you'll let me shoot that thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude." We went over to a safe area. I took off my holster and my magazine carriers, and I was like, "Hey, man!" Like, I was even up there, like, "Look, do you need ammo?" And he was like, "No, I got ammo." This was before COVID,
Yeah.
so ammo was still, I was still paying like $220 for a case of Federal Syntec. That's how cheap ammo was,
Yeah.
and he was like, "No, no, I got my own ammo." So I heard him shoot 5 rounds in the next bay. That was it. That was all he needed to understand how the trigger was. That was all he needed, just 5 rounds.
Uh-huh.
He comes back in and shoots better on the stage than I did. Like, I shot it in 22.98 and he shot it in 22.01.
Wow.
Yeah, with my gear. And so
That's
I was
cool.
like, and what that showed me was a true master is a master no matter what gun you give him. No
Yeah.
matter what.
Totally
He
agree.
understands the fundamentals to the point where he can do
Yeah.
that. And so staying
Mhm.
process focused, just having fun with it and, just kind of
Mhm.
like it's it's almost like you have to almost get out of your own way. You know what I mean?
You do. You do. It's not almost like, you do. I'm
Yeah.
struggling with that, so that's why I'm saying that, yeah. Really quick, guys, we are almost towards the end of the broadcast, so be thinking about questions for Memphis. Drop a lot of questions for you, Memphis, and I'm so in talking about being a lower level shooter and a higher level shooter, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just facts, right? What do you think has been the biggest takeaway as far as, like, is it skill set? Is it the mental game? What is it that separates the good from the great as far as competitive shooting goes in your observations?
Um, I would I would I would break it down to just emotional control and mental management, plain and simple. Yeah.
Mm,
So because if you know how to shoot well, I'm talking if you're, I don't know, let's just say you're a turbo pin winner, right? And really, you're not really going to be able to get to turbo pin until you really manage your mental game and until you manage your emotions. Um,
mhm. And
that's
what do you
really,
mean by that? Manage your emotions for those that might not understand that.
yeah. So understanding where you are emotionally and staying in the moment, like Adam Lynch would say,
Mhm,
just focusing on the process itself. Um,
mhm,
For instance, like let's say you're just a really really strong shooter. Let's say you're right there on the cusp of light pen, and if I just work really hard and I try and I really just push it, maybe I can get to turbo pen. And the problem is you're probably not going to make it because
mhm,
you know, your mind isn't really where you need it to be. Um, you really need to, in order for you to make those metrics, you really have to be running for your subconscious. And if your
mhm,
conscious mind is getting in the way, if your conscious mind is trying to take control, then it's not going to understand. You're not going to be able to manage the minor idiosyncrasies that come along with higher level shooting. Like if you're a strong shooter, you can probably make it to um, B class in USPSA. You could probably make it to, sharpshooter in IDPA. You'll probably be okay. You'll probably make it to light pin. Um,
Mhm.
but the problem with it that is a lot of the, grip, sights, and trigger have to be myelinated to the point where you just do it. So instead of
Mhm.
thinking of like your 4-step draw stroke, like, okay, I got to go to 1 and I got to go to 2 and I got to go to 3. Instead,
Mhm.
you just draw and it just becomes organic. And
Mhm.
that way you can free up that top down processing, and the shooting could be more of a bottom up process. Um,
Mhm.
because your subconscious is going to be more of, like, let's say, have you ever driven somewhere and you kind of didn't really remember the route you take when you got there? You just kind
Mhm.
of drove. You didn't
Mhm.
remember that purple car that cut you off. You didn't remember that, the Circle K down the street is closed now. You didn't remember that, the light on Main Street just felt a little bit longer than usual. You don't remember all that stuff. You just kind of drove from your subconscious. You might have been
Mhm.
drinking coffee. You might have been texting. Um, but
But
what?
so then that sounds like so this is what's confusing to me. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
The okay, the driving from your subconscious, but yet you say stay in the process. So does that mean you stay fully present, but you're on autopilot at the same time? Like, is there a balance there then?
absolutely. There's a balance. Absolutely. So when you
Okay.
drive, you don't really think about how much pressure you apply to the gas. You don't really think about
Okay.
where your foot is situated. You don't think about, turning the steering wheel. You just turn. You don't think about,
Mhm.
I got to put more foot on the gas so that I can introduce more, of a rich fuel air mixture and, get more acceleration. No,
That
you
does
just
not
go.
cross my mind.
It doesn't. You just go. You just, hit the gas and you go. You don't really think about that. What you do
Right.
think about is I need to make a left on Main Street. What you do need to
The
think
big
about
picture
is,
stuff.
yeah, or the next intersection has a yellow light, so I need to start slowing down. You don't think about how much pressure you apply to the
Mhm.
brake. You just do it.
Right.
Shooting needs to
Okay.
be the
I
same
get
way.
what you're saying.
Shooting needs to be the
Okay.
same way.
That makes
Like, you
sense.
just now the discovery process, and that's really where a lot of shooters really kind of, cut themselves short. The discovery process needs to be a lot more discovery and a lot less, I need to make this bill drill in two seconds flat. And that
Or
means
I
that I need
suck.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, I need to have a draw the first shot. The first shot needs to be in less than a minute or less than a second, and all the other things. I got to grab my concealment. No,
Mhm.
how about when you have your practice session, instead of trying to do the thing and forcing yourself to do the thing and pushing to do the thing, how about we just see where we're at? Okay?
Mhm. Yeah.
And if you make it, you make it, and if you don't, you don't. Um,
Mhm.
and then just use that as a learning tool to guide your future practice.
That's
Uh,
again managing your emotion, right?
yeah,
'Cause it's how
absolutely.
you're perceiving what's happening as good or bad, right?
Mhm. Let
Yeah.
the let all the mechanical stuff run from your subconscious. And if
Mhm.
you're not there yet, that's what dry practice is for, so that you can
Mhm.
get the reps in and you can refine all the little minor idiosyncrasies. How much grip do I apply? How well do I
Mhm.
need to see my sights? Like, how much of this right here needs to be like, is this going to be good enough, or is
Yeah, good
this?
enough.
Do I need to be perfect? Like, how do I modulate that? Stuff like
Yeah.
that. That really needs to be worked on in private, either in live practice and or in dry practice, so that
Mhm.
when you actually go out to the match or the class or the thing, or worse yet, the Walmart parking lot where, three dudes are trying to stash you into the back of a white van, that's
Mhm.
where you can just, instead of, okay, I got to get my conceal. No, no, no. I need to put two into that thing. And,
Mhm.
I need to put two into that thing. Or I need to just, I need to ventilate this guy until he stops.
Mhm.
So you don't have time. You're not going to have time, and you really don't want your conscious mind to be thinking about that, because it's not as
Right.
good of a driver as your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is such a better driver.
Mhm. That's true. So, question then for anybody that's newer out there that maybe hasn't even tried competitive shooting yet, maybe they're a newer shooter. Do you have any advice or like potential pitfalls or anything from your experience that you could share with them? I
I would
have one if you don't.
say this is going to sound really bad, but would you mind repeating the question? It's a stalling tactic so that I can
Well,
come up
I
with a
I
clear
I
answer.
want to appeal to, the newer shooters out there too. There might be some people watching who've never tried competitive shooting, who are thinking about it. Is there any bit of advice that you could give someone that's new to the game, just as far as their approach to competitive shooting, or any like potential pitfalls they should look out for as a newer
Absolutely.
shooter?
Yeah, absolutely. So, number one, um, just don't set any goals just yet.
Yeah.
Okay. But just try to have fun and don't get disqualified. Don't,
Be safe. Yes.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
don't set any goals because what ends up happening inevitably, excuse me, what ends up happening inevitably is that people start off with very, very nebulous goals like, hey, I just want to get better. Or I just want to come out
Yeah.
here in my carry gear and get more reps with what I carry every day. Or, I just want to be able to, expose myself to a higher level of pressure while I'm shooting, which all of those are good goals. The problem is we don't stay honest with them because right
Mhm.
after every stage, what do we ask? Like, what was my raw time? Did I get any
Mhm.
Charlies? Like, what was my hit factor? And it's like, are you really staying true to your goal? Because if you just wanted to get reps and you didn't want to get disqualified, then what is your score matter? Okay, like why are you looking
Mhm.
at your scorecard? Why are you?
Oh, that's what
And
everybody wants to know. It's the same reason why they look over their gun every shot, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead, you should be able to call your shot from seeing the
Mhm.
sights. But what
Mhm.
what ends up invariably happening is that from there, they're like, okay, well, they come up with these arbitrary um, goals, such as I want to get faster splits, I want to get quicker out of the draw, I want to get better reloads. So they buy stuff. They buy
Oh, yeah.
extended magazines, and they buy holsters, and they buy belts, and they
Mhm.
buy all the things only to sell it
Mhm.
6 months later because, it was just a passing infatuation. Or
Mhm.
worse yet, they end up buying the wrong stuff and now they gotta buy other stuff. So,
Mhm.
this holster didn't work for me, so I gotta buy something else. I gotta buy. No, how about we just, you know, after about 6 months, once we learn enough about the game and how it's played, how about then, we can make some very, very minor goals and then just try to stick with those. Like, for
Mhm.
instance, I want to better goals would be and then we need to base those goals on keeping us centered and focused inside of the process, such as I wanna be able to call every shot. And
Mhm.
success at that stage does not mean um, whatever my hit factor is or however many Charlies I got. No, I need to be able to know just from my sights, not from looking at
Mhm.
the hole in the target. I need to
Mhm.
be able to know from where my sights are that I got two Charlies on that swinger down there, or
Mhm.
I got a mic on this target over here in the corner, or those two shots in the head box. They were alphas. I need to be able to know that. There
Mhm.
was one shooter that I remember that, he would get done with the stage and he would walk away and he would say to the scorekeeper, four Charlies, one Delta. And you would go through and count up the 30 targets that he shot. And sure enough,
No kidding.
one, two, yeah, four Charlies and one Delta. Did he care that he didn't win the stage? Did he care that, about all the things that he was like third or whatever? No. What he cared about was that he had 100% awareness of every shot that he fired. And
Yeah.
what better metric can we have for concealed carriers?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
it's
Totally
so
agree with that. Really good advice, Memphis. That is very valuable, I know, to many people, and, really, really good stuff. We do have a few questions. Are you game for some Q&A here in a little bit?
I'm excited.
So throw out your questions, guys. If you have any questions for Memphis, we want to hear from you. Really quickly before we transition into that, do you have any shout outs? Like, where can people find you? Do you have any classes coming up, et cetera, that you want to shout out?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Yeah. So buckle up because there's a lot of people, right?
Buckle up.
Um, Yeah. So, first off, I teach classes at Top Gun Memphis. The director of training is Will Dugan, and it's because of him that I got as many reps as I got, and that I, was able to refine my craft. He even lets me design coursework and put it on the calendar. And so, but the reason why we have an intro to pistol optics class, we have an intro to pistol optics class coming up in 2 weeks. And
Mm,
our biggest piece of
perfect.
advice that we want people to know is that you please do not go out and buy anything for this class. We have we have we have optic mounted guns for you to borrow. And so,
Mhm.
as a matter of fact, we plan on bringing 12 guns with optics to the class for people to try
Oh
out.
man,
We're
that's
going to
so
try out
cool.
12 different guns. So, and for someone that is just now getting into pistol optics, what better way is there than to look and see, okay, let's look at different emitters to see what reacts to your eyes the best, what your
Yeah,
eyes react to the best. And
yeah.
so, um, it's because of Will Dugan that we're able to do stuff like that. And so he was very active back in the Range Master Mothership days, and he's director of training at Top Gun. And so, if you're in the Memphis area and you're looking for a place to shoot, or if you're looking for a place to eat barbecue because there's a barbecue restaurant in the building, welcome, welcome to this.
That's appealing.
Um, there's also uh, there's also in the same building as Mid South Laser Engraving. And not only do they engrave guns, they do a lot of stuff with retirement, a lot of retirees' guns, and they also do NFA engravings. So if you have anything with some paperwork, you don't have to carry the paperwork around. You could just have the engraving right there on the gun, and that's really handy, especially if you go out of state. Um,
Mhm,
and then also, another shout out is for barrel block safety. That's what these little things right here are. And what this
mhm,
does is it transforms your fully functioning firearm into an inert training tool. And
mhm.
if you go to, I usually have a thing there, but if you go to barrel block safety, if you go to blocksafety.com and you use the coupon code Memphis 2022, you get 15% off your entire order, and that's everything site wide. And Defenders Live also has a coupon code as well. They have a coupon code for block safety because
We do.
so
Thanks for that,
um,
Memphis, because that's where I was going next before the Q&A. It's like you knew.
yeah. So as far as like other shout outs go, let's see. We could be here all night. I don't want to take up too much more time, but those were the main three, and I'm just thankful
Okay.
that you even gave me that.
No, of course I would. Yeah, and make sure you check Memphis out on YouTube as well, at Memphis Beach on YouTube. That's where you can find a lot of his content. Um, and so before we transition over into the Q&A, and make sure you're dropping in any questions you have really quickly, make sure that you go to defenders-live.com for all things Defenders Live. And there you can look at past episodes, see who past guests have been, and sign up for our email list so that we can stay in touch with you and let you know what to expect in upcoming weeks. And also go to the partners page. Shameless plug to go to the partners page for all of the companies that we've partnered with, that we believe in, that we think might be able to help you out too. So check out defenders-live.com for that. And let's move into the Q&A here, and stay tuned towards the end of the show, or at the end of the show. I'm going to be letting you know who to expect for next week. So let's look at our questions here. Um, Clint wants to know, which one do you prefer, USPSA or IDPA, and why?
It depends on what you want to do. I think that the best thing for concealed carriers to do, besides getting some qualified instruction, is to shoot IDPA because that's gonna put you by the rules. It's gonna put you in more of a realistic scenario. Every stage is required that you draw from concealment. Every stage you have to manage, shooting threats without hitting non-threats. Every stage you have to use walls and barricades as concealment. And so, um, and those walls and barricades are going to simulate cover to keep you from getting shot while you're shooting bad guys. And so, for
Mhm.
defenders, I would recommend IDPA if you just want to go out there and run your carry gun. If you want to be a better shooter, like to really kind of get more into the puzzle solving process of shooting, I would recommend USPSA. And um, it's not for the faint of heart. Okay, it's really going to humble you because the level of skill there is just so is so much deeper of a pool of skill, because it ends up being a lot more mental and a lot more cerebral. A lot of those stages are
Mhm.
made to confuse you. They're made to
Mm,
frustrate you. And the real challenge is not to, shoot the things, to hit the targets. The real challenge is to not allow it to rattle you emotionally, to
mm.
stay in control and focus on the process. That's the real.
Good practice. Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for that. Tony's asking, knowing that you've been through the Marine Corps marksmanship training and had to qualify with the M16A2 annually, how would you say Grass Week compares or prepares someone to the process you're speaking of? And what are the differences between your shooting process now and what you used as a Marine? That's a
So
lot to unpack there.
it is a lot to unpack. Tony has always been very cerebral like that. Tony was, when I first met him, he was a sergeant back in the Marine Corps, and he I met him all the way up through staff sergeant, and I think he even made it up to gunnery sergeant. And so, like, he and I are very close. I met his wife, I met his kids. The man is
Mm.
absolutely awesome, and he's been one of my mentors my entire life. Like, he's like a father figure to me, and so I'm just
Aw,
surprised that he would watch. So
that's awesome.
yeah, grass week is the week where all the Marines back in boot camp would go to the rifle range and qualify. And if you can't qualify to a
Okay.
high level, you're not a Marine. Every Marine is a rifleman, and so there's a lot of mental and physical pressure that's involved in that. Being able to manage that is something that every Marine is expected to do, just by the
Mhm.
sheer toughness and determination that he has. Um, the stuff that we're doing now is a little bit different because a lot of people just aren't equipped. They're not. They're not I don't want to say they're not trained that way. I just want to say that it wasn't really part of the equation when they first started, you know?
Mm.
And so, because the Marine Corps, everything in the Marine Corps, especially boot camp, is it tests you physically to reveal what's there mentally and emotionally. And I think it's a different game, but it tests the same things. It's almost like,
Mm.
you have a different rifle, but it shoots the same bullets, kind of sorta. Does that
Hmm.
does that make sense?
That's interesting. Well, I mean, that kind of a background would give you a certain level of, as you called, emotional management that perhaps other people wouldn't have, I would guess.
Um, I may have started exercising those muscles earlier, but those
Yeah.
muscles are still there. Like, the
Yeah.
potential's there.
Mhm. That's good to know. All right, Haven Defense Co. wants to know, what 2 books would you recommend reading for shooting performance, one directly related to shooting and one for mental management?
Oh, man, this is easy. Like, do you want Audible or do you want, paperback? So, as far as shooting performance goes, let's see. The most I'm gonna give you 2 I'm gonna okay, let's start with the
Narrow it down, Memphis, come on now.
Yeah, because I run a book club after all. So,
Yeah.
um, as far as, like, directly relating to the act of shooting and just when it comes down to just technical shooting, what I would probably recommend is, Steve Anderson's, Refinement and Repetition. That really gave
Mhm,
me the bones for how to dry practice, and, it really kind of laid things out for me, as far as, um very, very technically, like, what do good sights need to look like? What does my grip need to feel like? And it doesn't really specifically say how this is how you grip the gun. What it really says is, how do you speak that to your subconscious? How do you myelinate that? Okay, how do you
mhm.
make it? How do you burn that in? How do you program that motor function? That motor program? Um, and so that right there ends up being really good if you want something to read on Audible, what I would say is um, Brian Enos, Practical Shooting,
Oh,
and I think it's called like Beyond the Basics or something like that.
this one?
Yes, the Shooting Bible. Yeah.
I just
So
bought it.
yeah, and so that right there, that one ends up being extremely technical. to the point where, I'm talking every time people call it the shooting Bible because every single time you read it, you pull something else out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see it from a
That's
different
what I've heard.
perspective. Yeah, and it grows with
Mm-hmm.
and so
Cool.
the as far as and those right there are just very very technical. As far as the mental side goes, on paperback, I would say with winning in mind. And once you start, what that
Oh, I
talks
think I
about
have that one
is,
too.
yeah, what it really talks about, and I think I even have it over here in the corner, but yep, that's it. Um, it was written by Lanny Basham. Lanny Basham was an Olympic precision rifle shooter, and he doesn't really talk about how to shoot well. He talks about how to be a better competitor and how to manage your
Mm-hmm.
emotions and how to run your own mental program. And so,
Mm-hmm.
that way you're able to ensure it's a rock solid program on how you can keep yourself focused on the process. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and he talks a lot about the relationship between the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and your self image. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and how those work together in order for you to win matches and to achieve your goals. That right there ends up being excellent. It's available on audiobook, but if you're on a short drive, the audiobook I would recommend even more would be The Inner Game of Tennis. And
Oh,
it sounds like
geez.
it's a book on tennis, but it's not. If you replace backstroke with drawstroke, then
This
you're
is a
going to be
complete
fine.
coincidence, by the way. We did not plan that I would have these books available, ready to go.
She's right. We didn't plan this at all. So, but yeah, that one right there, what that talks about is the concept of, training your subconscious to do the thing. Instead of trying to do the thing or struggling to do the thing, you just do the thing. And
Mm-hmm.
you can do that by running that motor program from your subconscious. And that book talks about how to do that in a very deliberate and tangible way. So if you're on a drive, do that.
I'm glad I'm on the right track, Memphis.
Yeah, skip right ahead to chapter 4, and
Chapter 4.
yeah, chapter 4 is where you wanna be. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. We're a little bit over the hour, but we did pretty good on time. I still had a lot of questions to go through, so didn't quite get to all of them, but that's okay. Um, Memphis, anything you want to leave our audience with before we move on here?
I'm just grateful that you would spend your time with me. You spend your
Aw,
time with me and Laura. There's a lot of things you could have been doing tonight. You could have been
yeah.
spending time with your family. You could have been, at work, earning some extra cash. Uh, you may still be doing those things, but you're sharing that experience and you're sharing that time with us. And that's not lost on us. We really do appreciate
Mhm.
that. It means a lot to us.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Memphis. Thank you so much for your time. You've been a wonderful guest. You're a great interviewer and a great interviewee as well.
This is fun. Thanks so much for having me. I'm
You
honored,
bet.
truly honored that you would have me on here with all the greats that you've had. It is
Oh,
such an incredible list of guests that you've had, and you honor me by including me in that list. I'm grateful.
well, I think a lot of people were really wanting to see you tonight, so I'm glad that you accepted. All right, so to next week we are going to have Adam Boyce from Spartan Mode. Have you guys already seen the first episode that I did with Adam Boyce? If not, you should go back and watch it because next week will be part 2 with Adam Boyce. So, Adam is an authorized instructor of martial blade concepts, and he's based in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and one of only a handful of martial blade concepts instructors in the entire world, and he travels to teach seminars regarding this. He's a defensive tactics instructor, pistol rifle shotgun instructor, and knife designer. He knows so much about knives. I've never met anyone that knows more. He's also had multiple years training in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. He's a perpetual student, a really, really great guy. You will love watching him. If you didn't get to watch the last episode, I recommend that you go see that before part 2. He's a wonderful teacher, and I'm sure he'll be sharing lots of gold nuggets with us next week. That will be next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Until then, take care.